Hey, Susan, so talk to us. What's one piece of advice you can give us this morning?
Michael, what I have found to be one of the best things to do in a dental practice is to not rely on one person on the team who knows how to go over treatment with a patient and present financing options. So I believe in cross-training your clinical team members, your dental assistants, your hygienists to become patient advocates, to be able to help a patient with fitting the recommended treatment into their budget and into their schedule, and to get them to commit to an appointment while they're in the operatory without having to walk them up to the reception area or the administrative area to get scheduled.
Interesting. So do you recommend everybody on the team know this?
Yes, I do. And what I recommend is that you create a system around it that can be trained. So having some type of tool to be able to present in real dollars what a patient's options are for paying for care, and having some type of third-party financing options if they want to spread out payments over time, and simplifying the process is the best way to get the most patients to say yes and agree to treatment sooner and easier. So there should be no reason why anyone on the team couldn't explain to a patient how they can pay for their treatment and where they can schedule.
Have you been noticing, is the handoff process where it declines? Like, okay, we're going to walk you up to our treatment coordinator or something. That's when, what have we been noticing in the psychology behind that, where it comes to the drop off?
Great question. In the operatory, the clinical team could think, oh yeah, the patient said yes. They're going to schedule. Doctor feels confident. And then something happens on that long walk to the front desk where they start, I got to get back to work, or they start changing their mind. Do I really need to do this now? And the real kiss of death is if they have to sit and wait to hear from the treatment coordinator what their insurance is going to cover and how they're going to do it. Because if they have to wait, as soon as that clock starts ticking, the likelihood of them scheduling just decreases. So we really want to not have the opportunity, to drop the ball, kind of like in football. We don't want to fumble it to the person at the administrative team. And oftentimes the patient's more comfortable with the clinical team because they've been with this person for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 45 minutes. They've gotten to know them. They trust them. Why shouldn't they just continue the whole process? Several reasons. I coached a doctor once who said he just felt like as soon as that patient stood up, it just kind of broke the spell of them not wanting to do it.
Yeah, that's an interesting insight that I never thought about, is that time frame, right? For when they go and when they come. So then could you walk us through how the flow of that would look? Like from the moment treatment is diagnosed until the patients leave, what happens step by step to make it successful?
What we create in this process is we create what I like to call a financial agreement form. And it's a Google spreadsheet that's customized to each practice. And once the treatment is diagnosed in the operatory, and what I like to coach is that if I'm a hygienist and my patient needs restorative treatment, I don't want to wait to the very end of that hygiene visit to have the doctor come in and confirm what I've seen. So what we coach is, in the beginning of the visit, do the diagnostics. And then if you see something and tee it up for the doctor, Michael, I'm concerned when I see this dark shadow on a tooth, it usually means there's decay under a filling. I'm going to have a doctor take a look at that. So as soon as you tee that up and you pick up a scaler, I like to have the hygienist message the doctor. Okay, exam, room 2, number 3, build up and crown. So doctor comes in early in the visit, interrupts the hygienist while they're scaling, and says, you're absolutely right. That tooth needs build up in a crown. And what can happen next is the hygienist or the assistant messages the administrative team, puts the treatment plan in the computer, and the administrative team starts to look up, okay, what are the dental benefits covered? How much is this going to cost the patient? And they prepare this financial agreement form. And the form just has 4 places for information: patient's name, the clinician's name, what the treatment is, total cost, insurance benefits, and it auto-populates all the other fields, whether they're going to pay up front, whether they're going to use financing. So there's no math that has to happen. It's all done for them. And during the rest of that hygiene visit, the hygienist can continue to talk about the treatment. So, Michael, have you ever had a crown before? Do you know what a crown is? Do you know why you need a crown? And can really confirm and answer any questions that patient has. So the last, say, 15 minutes of that appointment, the administrative team members coming back with this financial agreement form, handing it to this hygienist, and the hygienist is saying, okay, Michael, if you pay in full today at time of scheduling, you can receive a 5% courtesy, or you can pay half at scheduling, half at first appointment. Or if you want to spread out payments, we work with third-party financing. Here's a QR code. We can see what you qualify for. So you get really specific and clear. And I like to have patients to have some skin in the game so that they're putting down some type of financial commitment when they schedule that visit.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to tie the payment to the first appointment because there's a big risk that they'll just say yes and then they'll cancel. And, we really want them committed to the visit. And, patient signs the form, team member signs the form, and they get a copy gets scanned on the chart. And if the patient does say, well, I want to think about it, or I want to talk to my spouse, or whatever they say, what we coach is that we say, okay, Michael, I understand how you feel. I've heard patients say that before. They want to talk to their spouse. Here's what we found. What option do you think you're leaning towards? What do you think your spouse is going to say? Like, kind of go there. Today is Wednesday. Can we call you on Thursday afternoon? Will that give you enough time to talk to your spouse? When do you plan to have that conversation? So kind of really leaning into that and then having someone follow up if we say we're going to follow up and the patient agrees to it.
Interesting. So this is kind of changing the whole operatory flow, right? Of how treatment is presented. Because it's like at the beginning almost, and then hygienist is talking and then they're pumping it up kind of a thing. And
I have a hygiene background myself. And I find that, the hygienist talks about what's needed for treatment in the beginning of the visit. They start cleaning. Now we're talking about what we're doing this fall, what our kids are doing. And then we sit and we wait for the doctor. And we go, I got to get back to work. I got to get out of here, and we wait for the doctor. The doctor comes in and goes, yes, okay, yeah, that needs to happen. Then we hand them off to the front desk and they say, well, have a seat because we have to figure out what your insurance is going to cover. So here, sit down. And they're like, I can't sit down. I got to go. Call me.
Interesting. Okay. So then can you provide a script maybe? I know right now you just provided it with, I got to check with my spouse. I got to do all that stuff. But how does it look for the hygienist or the assistant? Is it all the same kind of a thing? We're all like rehearsing the same script on how we're going to present this treatment to them, or everybody has their own personality?
Well, people will put their personality into it, but the form that we create as a guide is pretty straightforward. So I've even had team members like hold the form and say, well, you could do this option and pay this amount, or you could do this option and pay this amount. So it's getting the team comfortable talking about money, talking about financing options, and having some success and feeling that, yes, I'm going to help this patient. And when I coach this, we start with the administrative team. Okay, who's talking about money now? Who's going over options with patients right now? Let's create this tool for you. Let's train on how you use this tool. And then we say, okay, now we're going to have more people know how to do it. Because what happens if you're out sick or you're on vacation? If there's only one or two people, or if it's a big practice and we've got 4 people exiting that all need to schedule, and we only have 2 people that know how to talk about money and the others have to wait. It just creates, so there's no bottlenecks or barriers to, getting patients to say yes. And what's really nice at the end of the day is after the team members get trained, get more comfortable, get used to it, they enjoy it. You know what? I like this part. I like this part of helping this patient figure this out. I feel like it's fulfilling and it's a really great skill set to have, because if you ever move or change jobs and you say to a dentist, oh, I can go over treatment, I can schedule them, I don't mind talking about how they can pay for the care. Everybody's going to have to pay for it. Usually have to pay something. Insurance isn't always 100%. So I think it's a great skill set to have.
No, definitely. So then when you implement this in a new office, what does the first 30 days of training look like?
So it's creating the form with the doctor and the administrator, lead administrator. Okay, what are your options? We're going to create this form. And then I've trained this virtually. I've trained this in person. It's simulating, it's getting the flow down. And the important part is having enough time to create this form, right? So we want to try to eliminate the waiting piece of it. So I've created these forms and I've even had team members fill these out the day before. Well, I know Michael Arias is coming in and he still hasn't done those 2 crowns on the upper right. I'm going to create one of these financial agreement forms and I'll have it all ready to go for him. So it's kind of preparation, right? Preparing who's coming in at the morning huddle, knowing that, if you're the hygienist, okay, my first 3 patients have outstanding treatment, and doctor, you're going to be in the middle of this implant. When are you going to come in my operatory and give it the nod that, it needs to get done, and create some urgency so that I can tell the people at the front desk to create the form and I can go over. So it's coordinating it, right? And it's having enough time. But in my opinion, if a hygienist has 50 minutes to an hour, there's usually enough time. If you have a very accelerated hygiene schedule and you're doing hygiene adult visits in 40 minutes or 30 minutes, that's going to be a little rougher. But if they have 50 minutes to 60, usually there's time. And not every patient usually needs treatment. So it's learning how to do it, practicing it, simulating it, and just going for it. And patients appreciate it. A lot of patients will say the thing they hate most about going to the dentist in a survey is not knowing how much something's going to cost before I have it done.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing they hate the most. So if we can get clear with them on what their options are and what it's going to cost and how they can pay for it, we're going to get more people comfortable agreeing to treatment and getting it scheduled.
Interesting. So then what are the most common objections or resistance from assistants and hygienists, and how do you overcome them?
Great question. That's why I went to clinical, so I wouldn't have to talk about the money. It makes me uncomfortable. I just want to help the patient. So a little bit of that, what do I say if a patient starts crying or if a patient gets upset, or, how do I do this? So what I like to say is, let's start off with the easy ones, right? Let's start off with, I want you to watch the administrative team member go over this form. Just be in the room and just see how she does it or he does it. And then do some easy ones, do a simple treatment plan. Maybe it's a patient who doesn't have insurance or what, pick a simple one to do and just kind of gradually build yourself up to do it. And I like to support the team to where we could say, okay, what's working for different team members? So somebody's like, well, I say this and this seems to work, or I start here and this seems to work. Like, look at who's already feeling more comfortable with it and how can they help pull the others up.
Yeah, like they motivate each other, kind of a thing.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
What's working for you? Or, and a lot of times they have to slow down. They can't talk too fast. People can't read and think at the same time, so they're reading the form and then to pause. Well, how does that option sound? And then you have to kind of sit in that silence. So when I go into offices to do a training, a lot of times I'll say, well, do you want me to present it? And you can watch me do it. And I'll just introduce myself like I'm the new girl. So I kind of make myself vulnerable, like this is how I would do it. And guess what? Sometimes it doesn't always go super smoothly, but it's a conversation piece. It's a tool. It's a way to get clear with patients. And like I said, we customize it. And like learning anything new, right? Sometimes is very, very hard. And then with more training, it gets easier and easier. So I think of something when you first started this job that was really hard to learn. Well, I didn't know how to do a treatment plan, the computer. And now it's easy for me to do that. Same kind of thing with this.
Interesting. So then you mentioned something. Could you give us like what you've seen from your expertise, the word whiskers that happen that kind of almost put up the defense of the patient, but we don't know it? For example, sometimes we say like a lot or like things like that, or word whiskers, like you said, not pausing enough. Is there anything that you've observed where you can kind of give us more, I guess, insight on that?
I would say going in with a positive mindset that the patient is going to say yes. Not, saying, well, do you want to schedule or do you, asking those open-ended questions. How do you feel about the treatment plan that the doctor recommended? Have you had this treatment done before? And giving them a chance to verbalize or talk about it. I was in an office once and they said, oh, this 10 o'clock patient, she's never going to schedule that crown. She's never schedules it. And I said, well, let me try. So I sat with her and the team said, she just doesn't want to pay for it. She doesn't want to pay for it. I'm like, okay. So I went through the form and I just asked her, I said, so have you had any experience with having crowns done in the past? And she goes, yes, it was terrible. I had temporary at another office and it kept falling off and my tooth was sensitive and it had nothing to do with the money. And no one asked her why she wasn't moving forward. And this office had CAD/CAM technology. I'm like, that's not going to happen here. They're going to make this crown in one visit. You're not going to have a temporary. You don't have to relive that bad experience here. So sometimes it's really finding out why aren't they moving forward.
I like that. Okay, so digging deeper. What are the exact three payment options you recommend presenting to patients and why those three?
So, depending on the service, right? Is there multiple visits? Is it a single visit? Say the treatment is $500 or less. I'm usually not recommending splitting up the payments, but if it's $500 or more and they want to split their portion of a payment, I like to say, okay, half it's scheduling and half at the first appointment. So we don't want to chase the money. We don't want to be cementing in crowns, finishing treatment, not having them pay, having them say, well, I forgot my credit cards today. We don't want to have to go after it. We don't want to submit to the insurance and say, well, we'll send you a bill once this insurance pays and we know. Don't want to do that. So we want to be able to either do half and half, or if you want to do thirds and you're prepping and seating, you could do a third at the schedule, a third at the prep, and a third at the seat, but collect that payment before that patient goes back and gets that crown cemented. So, in order to save time at checkout, Michael, your portion today is X. Let's take care of that today. Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't bring my wallet. Oh, I didn't know I had to pay today. Oh, you remember that form you signed, that financial agreement form you signed? There's something very powerful about signing something too, and if you have an inkling that this patient may not show up with the payment, you can confirm it on the phone. I just want to go over the appointment, plan to be here about an hour. Got this beautiful new crown for you. We'll be collecting your final portion for that. It'll be X, just so you're prepared, so it's kind of knowing that, or, you can email them a copy of the form. Oh, I forgot about, did I sign something? So that's one thing I recommend. And then many offices have Care Credit, which is a wonderful financing tool, but I also recommend having a financing option that has high approval ratings. So there are many of those out there as well. And having the ability to have patients easily see what they qualify for. So many of these companies have QR codes. You can even text it to a patient on the phone, a new patient. I have team members doing that. Let me text you a QR code. You can see how much you could qualify for. Here, I'm going to text this to you. Like, get them filling out these forms and getting more information and really kind of leaning into, well, do you have a budget in mind for your dental care? Because this financial agreement tool that we create, say you needed 3 crowns and the lowest payment was $600 with financing. You could say, well, I can't afford 600. Okay, well, what if we do 1 crown and the payment's 200? You can play with this form with changing the dollar amount, and people make decisions on a monthly payment. So it's better to say we have payment plans, right? We have payment options. Many patients take advantage of our payment options.
I love that. Okay. So one final thing I wanted to ask when it comes to that part, you're presenting the treatment, and then at the same time we have payment plans and things like that. But when they're signing the agreement, and you mentioned this before, you said you want them to have skin in the game. What would be the thing to say for them to be like, yeah, I'll pay a portion right now, or something like that? Is there like a specific script to kind of just make them say, because they can say like, yeah, I agree, I'll sign, but I can pay it all at the end. But you want them to have skin in the game.
I get that. So I've seen that. So where the patient will say, oh yeah, well, I'll just pay it when I come in. Oh, that's not one of the options, Michael. That's not how we're doing it any longer. I've even had team members, yeah, our accountant wants us to do it this way.
Okay.
Because we're going to create this new process, right? And 10% of your people are going to go, oh, wait a minute. I'm not going to pay for something until I get it. I'm not going to do that. But you book a hotel room, they take a credit card. You sometimes book a dinner reservation at a restaurant. They want a credit card. They want people to be somewhat committed. And you have to understand that you're going to get pushback, right? 10% of patients are going to push back, and you just have to be ready for it. So you just have to be, I don't like the word policy, like this is our new policy. It's like, well, this is how we're doing things now. We're reserving an hour time in Dr. Leckowitz's schedule just for you, Michael. So in order to reserve this time, this is how we do it now with a smile. Everybody's doing it this way.
Yeah. That's true. They become not irate, but like more upset. And they're like, no, I don't have the funds right now to give you any. What do we do in that scenario? Do we just kind of, okay, we'll make it for you? Or no, we just stick to our guns?
I would try to lean into, okay, when do you think you will have it? Or do you want to, build up a reserve here? You can put $50 down each week, until you get to the $200 or whatever it is. If people really want something, they'll find a way to pay for it. I mean, if they really want it, right? If they really value it, they'll generally find a way to get it. And I've seen and I've heard situations where patients who needed maybe a lot of dental care, right? They had been away from the dentist for a long time. They needed a lot of care. And like, well, I'm going to have to do some kind of financing. Okay. But then they find someone to either loan them money, right? Or they do a home equity loan, or they find an aunt who says, well, you can pay me back. Like they'll find a way to pay for the treatment. I believe in lowering the barrier to care and having the team say, you know what, we want everyone to have an opportunity to get healthy. We don't want money to get in the way, so what could you afford? We're here to help you. And this is how we're going to do it. We can't be the bank for the patient, but there's so many options. And so many industries have that too. Veterinary offices, plastic surgeons, med spas, if people want something, they'll find a way.
Yeah, they'll find it. Interesting. So one of the last questions, Susan, I wanted to ask you is, if a practice owner wants to start this on Monday, what are the first 5 steps they should take to get the system off the ground?
Have a team meeting, really kind of analyze and take a look at what are the options for paying for care. And do we have this really clearly outlined? So in my experience, none of the practice management softwares really have a tool like I've created. They have treatment plans, but they don't have like a financial agreement form. And what I find happens is people say, well, we have care credit and we have another option. How often do you use it? Oh, not very often because nobody wants to finance. Like, okay. But are you talking about what the payment is? The payment will be $200, $350. Give them a number, not just you can finance. Because as soon as you say you can finance, they think interest and they think, no, I don't want to do that. Or my credit score isn't good. So we have to be able to say we have options that have high approval ratings. 90% of our patients are approved, regardless of your credit score. You need to go there. So understand that, and then really figure out how you can create some type of spreadsheet form that auto-populates. And some team members have really good IT people, love Excel, love those documents. They can create one. I have a gal on my team who creates ours, and we have a template. And think about if you have a membership plan, we also have a membership portion of it that shows the patient what they save with, being a member of the plan. So I love membership plans. I think every office should have it. They should have third-party financing membership plans and just get really clear on how are people paying for care? When are they paying for it? It's scheduling, first appointment. What does that look like? And then if you have the form, start using it with your treatment coordinators and administrative people. So anyone who's sitting at that front desk should be able to present treatment, and then start cross-training the clinical team so that everyone is comfortable and everyone knows how to talk about it. And what I like to do is track success, right? And look at results, because that's how you know, well, is it working? And if it's not working, what is the obstacle? So I like the analytics platforms to look at how many patients are saying yes, how much of the dollars are they saying yes to? Are we on our goal? Do we need to have more new patients and diagnose more treatment, or do we need to get more patients to yes? And many, many times when we start with a practice, if we can get more patients to say yes to treatment and to more of the dollars, they're going to grow and excel their goals. And we like to get this case agreement system, is what I call it, doing the exams earlier in hygiene, talking about outstanding treatment at the huddle, and strategizing your day and following up with people. So once we get like this case agreement system down, then I think you can turn the marketing valve on and you can start saying, okay, we need more new patients. But I like to kind of focus on what's already happening in the office right now. And let's create a better process around that.
I love it. Beautiful. Awesome, Susan. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And if anyone has further questions, you can definitely find her in the Dental Marketer Society Facebook group. Or where can they reach out to you directly?
My email is susan@dentalcoaches.com. For any of the listeners, if you want some help creating this financial agreement form that I talked about, I'd be happy to offer a coaching call with Jennifer on my team, and we can create a form for you with your logo, and your options, and then we can offer one coaching, training, Zoom meeting. This would be like 2 Zoom meetings to teach your team, okay, here's how you're going to present it to your team. So just reach out to me in an email and we can schedule a call. I can provide the link to my calendar as well for your show notes. I'd love to help anybody out there who'd like some help.
Awesome. Wonderful. So that's all going to be in the show notes below. So definitely reach out to Susan. And Susan, thank you so much for being with us on this episode, and we'll hear from you soon.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.